without further ado, let's get to our featured interview tonight because we have 2 humans and 1 animal guest. Very happy to be joined tonight by Shaina Levee, starting on the outside, and Jessie Lynn Dolan on my inside. So, thank you guys again for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And also, I'll let you, Shaina, introduce our pup here. She's stealing the show already.
This is Lilla.
Lilla.
Lilla the fairy fluff.
We'll have to make sure we get the special Lilla cam set up just for her. So, Shaina, we're here tonight talking about BLove Family Festival, right? Before we get into kind of the scope of that, it's coming up this weekend, and we can see we've got posters, and we'll put those graphics up. But tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and kind of your background.
Well, I am Shaina Levee, as Eli mentions, and my background is in psychology. I further specialize in birth-related trauma as a psychotherapist and a body worker. I do craniosacral therapy. It's really common that a lot of physical ailments that are held in the body can actually have origins in the process of being born as the molding takes shape. So without a sensitive awareness to this process, which, don't get me wrong, I feel like our society kind of lacks that kind of awareness.
Yeah.
Where maybe other societies don't really lack that. So anyway, that can like manifest as chronic body issues, jaw tension, headaches, back problems, also a whole host of issues.
Yeah.
So part of the BLove Family Festival is to really bring awareness to the sensitive experience of birth.
Yes.
Yeah, and we want to do it in a fun way because culture is beautiful and it's something to celebrate. Being alive and being born in itself is a celebration. And
there's so much, it seems like, that goes into this talk about kind of holistically thinking about, health and like an ecosystem when starting really from kind of the family unit. But, your background kind of coming at this more with from a natural healing perspective necessarily than a cannabis per se, which we'll talk to Jessie Lynn and let her introduce herself actually, because I think some people know Jessie Lynn if they've ever been to our events. Jessie Lynn, your background is very much in cannabis, also in healing as well. And you're going to be appearing at the BLove Family Festival. So maybe you can give the folks a little bit of background about yourself as well and kind of how you come to this. And I know we've got a 5-page long list of accreditations because it's very impressive, your detailed background. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to with cannabis.
Sure. So I am a marijuana medical patient and cultivating caregiver for an oncology nurse colleague as well. I've been involved with cannabis for decades as an herbalist, crafting and cultivating cannabis. I started H.E.M.P, Horticultural Excellence, Medicinal Perfection.
Well done with the product placement, yes. These are very comfortable shirts too, I can attest.
Yep. And we are the first clean, green, organic certified farm on the East Coast. Super psyched about that. My partner and I, Matt, also started Homegrown Consulting, which is both a medicinal and cultivation consultation service to help people and support them. We feel it's so important to have organic, clean medicine and are also very passionate about helping others learn to grow because that's part of the healing themselves.
Right. And I know that we're going to talk about that in future episodes.
Definitely.
To talk about clean green, about organic cultivation, about what that word actually means or doesn't mean when it comes to the cannabis plant.
Yes,
but I don't want to cut you off because I know you've got medical and sort of credentials as well, right?
Yep. And like you said, some people know me in the cannabis world, but I've been in the birth world for probably even longer, and that's definitely an enormous passion of mine. So I'm a registered nurse. I did start the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association to gather other medical professionals to kind of do some of this advocacy work and educate each other. But right now as a nurse, I'm working for UVM and NIH, the National Institute of Health, in opioid research. I'm also a sexual and domestic forensic nurse examiner. I was previously a labor and delivery nurse at a few different hospitals for years, and hold on, I got to check my cheat sheet because I have too many credentials, sorry. I spent as a nurse 8 years specializing with clients with substance use disorder, particularly opioid use disorder. So working with women in pregnancy, breastfeeding, and then helping to wean and detox their infants after opioid use disorder. So that was a crux of my work. I am a labor and postpartum doula. I've been doing that for almost 20 years now, and I actually train other people to be doulas. I'm starting, super excited, a volunteer doula program at UVM. It's been a work in progress for years and years, so check that out if you guys are interested at all in supporting birthing families. This is a free volunteer service, so I'll do the training, and then we'll get people to support one another. I also am starting a postpartum volunteer doula program down in Brattleboro, so a lot of really exciting, fun stuff happening. I'm working with the state of Vermont right now to create childbirth classes specific for Medicaid clients and clients with other kind of social services needs and comorbidities like opioid use and substance use disorder. So I'm stoked about that. I've been a childbirth educator for about 17, 18 years, specifically with hypnosis, so using the power of the mind to work towards kind of your birthing plans and preferences and wishes. I'm also an infant massage instructor, a yoga instructor, CPR instructor, and I've been a massage therapist and birth worker, and body worker and cranial sacral therapist as well for a long time. So, and I think lastly to mention, I'm a acu-detox specialist, so acupuncture specifically for mental health and substance use disorder, and I'm a maternal child health tobacco intervention trainer. So lots of birth
That's
stuff.
a lot of, you guys should see the list of what all these look like in acronym for. Is it extremely impressive, and congratulate you, Shaina, on getting such an awesome and experienced group of panelists together. Before we talk about your specific panel, Jessie Lynn, Shaina, maybe you can give us a little bit. I'm looking at this awesome poster, and I'll encourage people to check out the Facebook page. I've got the full lineup on here, so we can put that up on the screen as well. But Shaina, maybe you can give us a little kind of background, because this is year number 2, right, of the BLove Family Festival. So sort of, how did this idea kind of come to, how did this idea come to be? And how did, you get to the point where you were actually starting this? So kind of how did this start, and then how did it evolve, and what are we expecting for this year?
Come to B.Love.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, very good.
Yeah, I think that's really the seed of it, is that every child, every human is love. And we have an opportunity to simply to be ourselves. And as a human culture and a human society too, also we have always been celebrating this aspect of giving life. And that ritual aspect of celebration has greatly been missing in this sort of homogenized, westernized culture.
Yeah.
So actually that's a big piece of why this year our theme involves CBD and cannabis, is because we have this sort of status quo of how birth should be, this idea of how parenting is supposed to be, and it really sort of can dampen that creative spark within the child, within the baby, and I'm sure every person who's watching this can sort of attest to that in their own way, when you had like inspiration and then lost it because you weren't allowed to do something based on sort of these like illusory governing structures of society. So yeah, I favor cognitive liberty personally, and I feel that moms, their comfort during pregnancy and birth, as well as postpartum, is really what matters the most in terms of nourishing themselves as well as nurturing their babies. And that's going to create longer lasting health in society as these children grow up. So I'm not pro-cannabis use during pregnancy, and I'm not against cannabis use in pregnancy either. I'm pro-mom's choice. And I feel that as long as there isn't, like, it's not coupled with addiction, and maybe Jessie Lynn can elaborate on that topic a little bit more. If a mom is a safe person, she's making wise choices for the benefit of her family, and that voice needs to be listened to, respected, honored, and celebrated.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we want to, that's a great description, and I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the overall fest, but I think you lined it up so well, Jessie Lynn. And I don't want to give away too much because you need to go on Saturday, and they have tickets are on sale right now.
Yes,
It's
true.
at Railyard Apothecary here in Burlington, so a beautiful location, a great place as far as herbalism and education. It's
Yep.
just perfect setting. So Jessie Lynn, like I think first question that people are going to have is what's the safety? You know, I mean, we're so ingrained to think that any substance that you take during pregnancy, usually tobacco and alcohol, and opioids now more and more have
Right.
such negative effects.
Right.
I think cannabis gets lumped in there. And so what's kind of some of the research, or what do we know from a medical perspective about how cannabis interacts with mothers during the pregnancy and then, with fetuses and children?
Right. What we know is we need more research. What we know is we don't have a lot of information. The information we do have has pretty much isn't proving to us that it's absolutely dangerous. And one great way to state that is by mentioning that as of November 1st, 2017, if a baby or mother tests positive for THC, Department of Children and Family Services is no longer getting involved.
Wow.
They don't see that as abuse or neglect. So
Yeah.
that really has changed.
And that's a big thing that
It
people
is.
probably are not, super familiar that has changed, because
Right.
I know that's something that is really terrifying. When DCF gets
Oh, yes.
involved, it's a whole host of
Yeah,
issues. So
definitely.
so that's good to know that THC is not triggering that anymore as
Right.
of 2017.
Right.
What about, THC and CBD work with your different CB1 and CB2 receptors differently, kind of, and again, I don't want to give away everything before Saturday, but sort of how is that expressed during, sort of the pregnancy process when you have all this sort of exchange happening, and, is CBD patently different from THC in how it's reacting to those, those receptors?
Right. We know that we have an endocannabinoid system, so does a baby. We do know that the endocannabinoid system is very sensitive in certain periods of gestation and development. So it's more so during specific times. But we also know that the exogenous, so that the cannabinoids we're adding to our system that our body isn't making ourselves, is crossing the placenta barrier, is crossing that blood-brain barrier, and is coming through our breast milk. So we know that, we just don't know the absolute definitives of the results long-term of that, whether that's negative or positive. But again, what we're basically looking at is like what Shaina said, informing people so that they can make their own decision, an informed
Right.
decision, an educated decision, knowing that we don't have all the information. We know a little bit. We have to outweigh the pros and the cons, but that's exactly what we do at pharmaceuticals too. So
Right.
like you said, we're putting moms on opioids. We have moms on antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, a slew of different medication. And again, we're saying, oh, the benefit outweighs the risk, but there's always risks. So this festival is also about herbology and herbs in general for pregnancy, children, breastfeeding, not just cannabis, because in this prenatal and maternal world, all herbs come into question. You'll have one midwife say, try black cohosh. A doctor might say, oh, I've read literature, I don't want you to try that. So I think cannabis and hemp, CBD products are also all lumped in together when we look at herbology, when this comes to these maternal years and
Right.
how that is acceptable or not acceptable
Right.
to some.
And I mean, it kind of fits with the festival, right? Of sort of zooming out in this holistic view and saying, let's understand what this is and measure it with other substances in a context that's at least accurate.
Right.
Even if it's everybody's going to specifically choose kind of what they do and don't do. But I appreciated that in the afternoon, one of the activities was herbalism for kids.
Yep.
I thought that was such a great introduction, and I thought maybe Shaina, we have a video from Myra Flynn, who is awesome, and I know super excited to have as part of the festival. We'll play that afterwards, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about kind of what's happening with the festival overall, other activities, And then maybe I thought kind of zoom back, because you mentioned our Western concept of childbirth and pregnancy. And then maybe I thought you'd give a little context to some of your own background and sort of how things that you've seen that kind of contrast with that to kind of
Sure.
set the stage.
Yeah, I might do that and then work backwards.
Yeah, let's do that.
So on a personal level, cannabis has really been a gateway to higher consciousness experiences and really allowed me to create my own thinking at a young age that was different from the thinking of the world around me growing up in Chicago. So somehow, some way, I ended up getting pretty deeply steeped in meditation practices. I ended up living in the Peruvian Andes, working with an indigenous tribe of, we would call them shamans, but that's not their terminology for themselves, but they're masterful energy beings and healers, and they taught me they initiated me into their lineage and were my original instructors in craniosacral therapy, as well as nature and the way that birth occurs within a context of this nature-based society and nature-based wisdom tradition. So,
and that's probably pretty dramatically contrasting to what people think about birth here in the U.S. and a hospital in Chicago versus in the Peruvian Andes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was born in a hospital in Chicago, and my mom had an epidural, and she didn't know, she wasn't informed about what it would do. She was only told it would take away the pain, and who's not thinking in the moment when they're laboring, yeah, I would like to have this pain taken away. But it ended up being a completely traumatic experience for her, and sort of had some lasting results in my own neurological system, which progressively I started to work through and heal as an adult, which is how I got into this line of work. So as far as all of that goes, that really sparked an interest for me in ways of preventing birth trauma by bringing awareness. So BLove Family Festival is about education, but it's also about experiential ways of directly engaging with these other forms of mind-body experiences, mind-body modalities or methods that can allow moms and dads, kids, everybody to connect within themselves on a deeper level. So music with Myra Flynn, we're super excited that she's going to be performing. This will be her second year performing with us. She's performed both of our festivals. And then we have our panel, and we have education on birth, postpartum choices. We have education on mindful parenting. And we have a yoga and massage class. We have a womb healing meditation. And then we have kids activities, including a bounce house and face painting, because you can't have a festival without those.
Of course.
Totally.
Yeah.
For all ages, I think we all love bounce houses and face painting. So.
Oh, I want a little fairy.
Yeah, seriously.
And then we have art and herbalism for kids, movement for kids. We have a dance class for kids, and it'll just be a good time. We have a ton of vendors. Our sponsors will be on site as well, so you can come and meet some of the amazing people: Phoenix Physical Therapy, Mellow Maple, Stoneleaf Tea House, Oils to Go, Sun Common, Elmore Mountain Therapeutics, as well as All Wellness. So we're pretty excited to have this wonderful gathering of community coming together to support women in their decision making and adults as parents in whatever decisions they make that may be against this like westernized culture.
Yeah. Well, and so cool to be able to have a celebratory family, all ages, where you're going to learn something, you're going to be able to have fun, you're going to meet people like-minded and different, you're going to experience new things, and you can all do it together. Jesselyn, I want to bounce back as a parent. Kind of, we hear about cannabis has kind of become like mommy's little helper, right? It's kind of taken that place of a glass of wine or like a happy pill or something like that. Has that been your experience, anecdotally? And I guess both of you guys, who do work with birthing mothers, but even you as a mother, why are mothers needing as somebody who's a shithead kid, occasionally, like, I can understand and answer this myself, but kind of how's cannabis interacting with parenting, and maybe how's it changed since legalization in Vermont, or just kind of the social consciousness changing?
Well, I think it's exciting. It's an exciting time. I see the difference of when we were kids and, you know, what we learned about weed and marijuana compared to kids are learning what cannabis is now. They're learning there's different plants, there's different uses, there's different cultivars. So I think it's a really fun time right now to educate kids very differently. So instead of giving them the fear tactic approach that we were taught as kids, we're able to really groom them and teach them, and these are the kids that are going to move forward and hopefully use cannabis instead of drink, instead of that little yellow pill that they wrote a song about in the 70s, you know,
Right.
as mommy's helper. So I think it's fantastic that now with legalization, people are starting to talk about it more. You still have, I think, a chunk of parents who are not willing to talk about it and are keeping it private, which is totally fine and acceptable. But I think more so you're having people have honest, open conversations with their kids. And that's where we're going to see the positive changes.
Right.
And I think we're starting to talk to kids about it just like we do alcohol. Kids are gonna smoke pot. Parents are gonna smoke pot. Kids are gonna drink beer. Parents are gonna drink beer. Is it the end of the world if we're safe and we talk about, you know, the concerns we need to talk about with them, just like we do alcohol?
I think we're all becoming much more aware of the most possible negative behavior associated with adolescent drinking and alcohol over the past few days. So it's actually an incredibly relevant time to sort of bring that up and talk about parenting and teaching risk mitigation and risk prevention and, you know, and responsibility when it comes to especially adolescent teenage males who, you know, do not always make the best decision when clear-headed, never mind when you introduce substances. So, and I think, you know, one thing with the parenting that I remember we talked to Melissa Etheridge, name drop, no big deal, about this. She was like, you know, because she's got 4 kids and they're all different ages and stuff. And she's like, this is so boring for my kids because this is like mom's thing. And they're like, you know, like if it's somewhat normalized and that parents aren't treating it like such a taboo, scary, like sexy, forbidden thing, you know, that teenagers are like, yeah, my mom's out back smoking a joint. You know, and it loses kind of some of that appeal, you know, and some of that danger element. So I think this resonates very, very strongly.
And I think for kids to see it as medicinal, whether someone has the medical card and a qualifying condition or not, they're seeing it more as medicinal and rather than a drug and an addiction and a problem and a, you know, legal consequence, which is the #1 side effect of cannabis, really.
Ooh, that's a good quote. I like that.
Yeah, I do think that's
the
a
legal
good one.
consequences.
The legal
Is the
consequence.
#1 side effect. I strongly believe that.
And interestingly enough, or not, but cannabis has a 5,000-year recorded history of use in women's reproductive health, including for young women who were experiencing painful menses. So.
All the way to stillbirth, to postpartum hemorrhage, to colicky babies, so many different uses historically.
And I know that we've, you mentioned that, I mean, we see more and more products that are coming out specifically designed to, you know, women's health and especially menstrual pain. You know, I know that's actually, shout out to Aeromed. I know that they make a specific, you know, product formulated for that. I know Maya and Whoopi, one of the most badass queens of cannabis, you know, their entire line is dedicated towards this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just marketing and branding, you know, and putting something in a pink box. You know, it's actually having something designed by women, sort of for women, right?
Yep, and that's been on a personal level. I am totally comfortable sharing this with everybody, but that's like when I use cannabis is when I'm experiencing menstrual cramps. Yeah.
And what's exciting to me is you had mentioned, you know, the addiction piece. So the way I look at it is there's cannabis, marijuana, and there's cannabis hemp. For the people that have either a history of addiction or risk of addiction or don't want to get high or don't, you know, have that concern or that stigma for the cannabis, marijuana, there's where we have hemp and CBD. So I really feel like there's an approach that works for everybody and something that everyone's comfortable with. If someone's not comfortable with the THC, cannabis, marijuana, then we look towards, oh, we have this other option too with this amazing healing plant. So that's where I see this as making sense for families, even families that say, oh, I don't want to get high, I don't want marijuana, that's taboo to me.
Right. And I think another really cool aspect of, you know, part of the festival is that you're teaching people, you're connecting them directly and empowering them. You know, so if you're a family, like, budget is a concern. Maybe you can't afford to go out and buy CBD products all the time, but you can, go to Railyard, connect, learn how to make them yourselves, find a grower who's doing it the right way, talk to somebody who is an herbalist, and actually be able to produce your own, wellness products. So that way, when you're, when it's that time and you know that you've got menstrual pain coming up, you've got your own jar of CBD that you've made or maybe even grown yourself in the future as well. So I think that's just such a cool bring it together kind of point.
And Railyard will actually, hopefully, that's the plan moving forward.
Well, you've said it now, so now you've spoken it into existence. So
Sue, I'm not making you do anything.
Right.
But we'll hopefully have our bulk organic, clean green certified hemp available to small craft herbalists or do-it-yourself homemakers that want to play and learn to do it themselves. Because again, from the growing to the crafting your own medicine is part of the healing. More so than just grabbing a bottle off the shelf. How do we really encompass this kind of holistic healing?
And the therapeutic part. I mean, I can say as somebody who was blessed to receive some amazing clones for CBD plants, myself in my own backyard, I got so much out of that experience.
Oh, yours were seeds. I don't think yours were clones, were they?
Yeah, they were definitely. I mean, not when I got them. I'd love to take that credit, but. Yeah, no, I haven't got to the harvesting part though, so that'll be that's a very different kind of therapy.
Definitely.
The trimming and harvesting.
Yes.
I want to play this video because I know, Shaina, you've got a bunch of awesome videos on the BLove Family Festival Facebook page, which people can check out, and they include testimonials from people sort of discussing what this event's going to be, and helping to promote.
I think the BLove Family page, facebook.com/BLove Family, which is the producing organization where BLove Family is the name of our company.
Put that up on the page afterwards when we come back to it, and then we'll get to our final segment of the night.
Beautiful.
But let's play the interview. This is the video. This was shared. This is a 1-minute video, and this is shared by Myra Flynn, face and voice that you guys might recognize, and if not, you should. And if you haven't yet, you will on Saturday. All right, awesome. So here we go.
What's up, Vermont? Myra Flynn here, saying hey from sunny Los Angeles, where I live with my husband part-time and then also transitioned to being bi-coastal and being back in Vermont for part of the year. And that is coming right up for me October 1st, and I'm so excited to be playing for the second year the BLove Family Festival. October 6th at the Railyard Apothecary in Burlington, Vermont. I'll be hitting the stage. One of the things I absolutely love about this festival is just how holistic and interactive the music is with families and with children. It's unlike anything I've ever played before, and if you haven't been, I really encourage you to come check this out. As somebody who might be thinking about starting my own family soon, it's pretty wild. I have so many questions to ask and so much to learn. So come join us, 7daystickets.com. I will see you October 6th. Peace.
That's a big shout out to our production team back here. We've got Sean and Eli talking about education. A couple of awesome UVM students who are here. We are getting better and better with the production, so thank you again to Rob Williams and his backpack journalism class, letting us come in. Shout out to all the students out there. We've got plenty more opportunities. A big thank you to Eli K, the other Eli. There are 3 Elis on this set, who will be editing this afterwards. No pressure. If it's up after Wednesday, it's probably my fault, not his. So let's talk a little bit more. Let's kind of wrap up with just an overview of what's in this workshop, because I know. And this one is taking place at what time during the day on Saturday? This is one of the first ones, right?
Right. So actually, the festival starts at 10:30 a.m. with yoga and massage, followed by a womb healing meditation facilitated by Sandy Morningstar. She is an amazing healer. She's over 85 years old, and she has been working with women and infants for 5 decades. She'll regress everybody through the perinatal sequence, which means gestation through being born, through having the umbilical cord cut. So it's gonna be pretty powerful. And then at 1 p.m. we go live with our panel discussion, which features Sarah Wiley, Dr. Sarah Wiley. She's a naturopathic doctor, a trained midwife, and she is also a specialist of the Maya abdominal therapy, trained by Rosita Arvigo herself. You can check that out sometime if you'd like. Joanna Vinton, and so Dr. Sarah will be talking more about the endocannabinoid system within the human body. She's actually prescribed CBD to treat postpartum depression, so she has a really interesting angle into this panel here. Joanna Vinton is an herbalist. She's a midwife in training. She works with Catherine Bromhall in Barrie. She will be providing information on access to herbs, herbalism, herbology. So if you don't want to use cannabis, if you don't want to use CBD, well, there's like a whole host of plants that are sacred to women's health and to babies and parenting. So she'll be providing that information. Ashley Reynolds, she's the owner of Elmore Mountain Therapeutics. She just won the $20,000 from the Female Founders Competition, the Start
She
Here
sponsored this
Challenge.
before she won the cash too. Shout out there. She committed before she got the cash boost. So it committed from the get-go.
So Ashley also sponsored our festival last year, and she's been a big supporter of BLove Family Festival. She actually used CBD to work with her own postpartum anxiety, and she'll be providing personal testimonial on our panel. And then there's Jessie Lynn Dillon, and since you're sitting right here, I don't think I'm going to introduce you.
I'm probably going to touch a little bit on pharmaceuticals in pregnancy and breastfeeding in comparison to cannabis, because that's a hot topic. Also, I always have to, as you know, kind of do a little piece on organic cultivation and how important that is. And I also want to bring in kind of this whole idea we're talking about and bringing the plant energy and that what we call conscious cannabis into this a little bit too. So it's more than just, like I said, plucking a bottle off a shelf. It's the whole energy system of the plant and bringing that into our energy worlds as we're creating little energy beings. So.
Good point, very good point. So if you didn't quite understand what she said, come to the festival and she'll explain it in more detail.
Yes.
Nice plug. There you go.
Also, Myra Flynn will be performing right after, and the best part of all of that is that we have 2 rooms. So the kids' activities will be happening in the Bija Movement and Yoga Studio, which is attached to Railyard Apothecary. There's a hallway. You can actually keep an eye on your kids and attend the workshops for adults at the same time.
That's very big. Well thought out for the actual family experience.
Totally.
All right, well, we've got a sort of different take on, this is how we always end the show, as longtime live stream viewers will know. It is our favorite segment, and we're gonna do a little variation of it, this week. So we'll introduce it for those of you that are not aware. Taking the nation by storm. People are doing it all over Vermont right now as we speak. This is a big part of, it's the interactive part of the live stream as well. So this segment is called As You Know. I'm going to say it, and this time Sean and Eli are going to really loudly say it with us. It's called Smoke Your Weed. Yeah, all right, very good. See, we have like tripled the volume on that in just this last week. So I'm going to join you guys. May I join you guys on the couch?
Oh, please.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay. We're going to do communal conscious cannabis consumption.
Okay.
Let's do it together, and then maybe you can, while we're sitting here, Jessie, you can explain what's in this, because this is a very unique joint that we've got in front of us here tonight.
Yep.
This is not just a big fat stinky weed joint,
Nope.
although we love that too.
It's a weed. It's a few weeds. But.
Okay, so what do we have in here that we're gonna? What is your weed that we'll be smoking tonight?
So the festival is CBD and herbs. So we have CBD and herbs in there. I've got 3 kinds of my hemp harvest this year. So we have Medicine Woman, which I think just the name is awesome.
Yes.
Charlotte's Cherries, which is the most beautiful cannabis plant I've ever seen grown, and some of the cherry cobbler in there. I also put in some white sage. We've got eucalyptus, peppermint, and lavender. So we have a mix of CBD and herbs, just like the BLove Family Fest.
Ooh, all right, very good. All right, see, usually I have like the whole thing, you know, like I'll just take the hit and be like, oh yeah, this weed. This one you're really putting me on the spot as well, because I'm gonna have to actually try to express what this flavor is.
And I
to
don't
people.
do this and often, so these are just
We
the
all
herbs
know.
that I
We
have
all
in
know
the
that. We
house.
all know. I appreciate you doing this for the segment. We know that smoking and combustion is the least healthy way to ingest cannabis.
So there's no THC in this
There
joint?
is no THC. It should be less than 0.3%
free.
THC of the hemp.
And stocked full of women's herbs.
Yep.
Woo! I mean, I guess all the cannabis we smoke is women's herbs, right?
Totally. That's why we need more women in this and doing this and cultivating.
I have never had like a mixed like herb kind of joint. I really like this. I can taste like the sage and the. Definitely taste the sage in there. You
Yep.
said there's mint too.
There's peppermint, sage, white sage, lavender, and eucalyptus. And 3 kinds of hemp CBD. Organic.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of the more unique. Yeah, that really tastes like. Is this a thing? Are people doing this? Like creating like craft, herbal blend
J-Mod.
Yeah.
CBD?
Stephanie at Canna Botanicals has her own little blend. And
Thank
I know Railyard Apothecary may do one at some point too. So
Wow.
it's a nice mix. It gives it a different taste and flavor than a traditional.
Yeah, oh, it
kind of
totally
weed
does. Well,
flavor.
and especially like if you're smoking CBD. Like I know even the finest outdoor Vermont craft cannabis can be a little rough, a little harsh sometimes. So cutting it with this is not a bad thing at all. That's really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. See, this is why, I guess to your point before, why we need more women's perspectives on this show. It's like we get into 10 different kinds of extraction and overlook that.
Yeah, so we talked
know?
about how there's the spirit of the plant, just very briefly. And so the essence of the plant has its own way of communicating. I'm holding the microphone, by the way. Anyway, it has its own way of communicating with the essence of the human spirit as well. So there's a dialogue that occurs there. So you can think about cultures where cannabis is so deeply steeped in the culture, like Jamaica, and there have actually been a really well-executed study by a researcher, Melanie Dreher, if I pronounced her name correctly, forgive me if I didn't, on cannabis use during pregnancy, during raising kids. And that plant is so steeped in the culture there, and it's so much embedded with the human spirit and the celebrations of that culture. It's a little different than this country, but
I mean, it's such a cool theme of like things coming full circle, and almost like 2018, like, oh, the cannabis plant, like the oldest plant that's existed with human civilization. Like, wow, all this rebirth, and then kind of, it's funny because we're in like our own like Western sort of bubble where you mentioned Jamaica, and it's like, yeah, no shit, like they've been doing this forever. Like, what brilliant big brain Westerners that we figured out the things that indigenous cultures have kept doing, throughout. Oh,
yeah. So on that note, you probably noticed I haven't been actually inhaling, but I've been like honoring myself and connecting with the plant, because you can do that through the essence. You don't have to actually ingest it if you don't want to, but it's like a way of being humble as these like Western white people who have discovered the medical benefits of a plant that has multiple thousands of years of history with indigenous cultures and indigenous people. And so to that end, we can be thankful to the roots of the Native people who have been holding this wisdom for a long time for our planet, for us to finally come around full circle. Thank you.
Thank you. And to the community that's kept it alive, despite the prohibition, sort of part that's kept that knowledge and information, even here in our privileged Western white, context too. I mean, we've got a lot of folks who are paid the price and done, serve the consequences to keep the best aspects of this, sort of going. So I think that's a beautiful,
Very true.
beautiful way to end it. So I will thank you both for joining us, and thank all of you for joining on this live stream tonight. Thank you to Jam Creative for hosting in this beautiful space. Directed by Mr. Sean Simonetti, as always, joined by our associate producer tonight, Mr. Eli F. behind the decks. We appreciate you guys. The BLove Family Fest is this Saturday, BLove Family Festival. You can find birthlovefamilyfestival.com, where you can find tickets, find information, find it on Facebook. We'll post the link, and look forward to seeing you guys all out on Saturday. Have a great night.